Alright guys, this is the 65% entry keyboard championship. This is for all the marbles. And in this corner, we have the standard 65% entry keyboard. I'm ready. Put me in the ring, coach. Let's do this. And in this corner, we have the newest challenger to the 65% entry class, the QK65. Wait. This is a entry 65% keyboard championship. Who's that? He's a QK65. He's another entry 65% keyboard. There's no way he belongs in the same class. I mean, just look at him. Well, his manager Qwertykeys said he's also in the same entry class. You guys are in the same price range. How can that be? I mean, look at me. And look at him. How's this fair? I'm not fighting that. Hey, I don't make the rules here. You guys are both entry 65% class. So either you fight or you forfeit. Is anybody else seeing this? Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Scott K. The 65% entry keyboard segment got turned upside down when Qwertykeys dropped the QK65. I still feel like the QK65 is a more premium board hiding behind a small price tag. It's kind of like when Mike Tyson walks into an airplane and beats up a regular dude. Wait, that happened. But today, we have another 65% keyboard that may be just as OP as the QK65. This is the Zoom65 by Meletrix. Ever since I dropped the QK65 video, so many people in the comments have been asking, QK65 or Zoom65, which one is better? Well, today we're going to try to find out. In case you didn't know, the Zoom65 is an entry 65% gasket mounted keyboard by Meletrix. And Meletrix is actually a sister company to a better known Wuque Studios. Kind of like what Owlabs is doing with Qwertykeys to bring great keyboards at more approachable prices, Wuque is actually leveraging Meletrix to do the same. And you know what? They did a great job with the Zoom65. But we all know that right now, the QK65 is pretty much the crowning entry 65% champion. So, can the Zoom65 actually overthrow that? I don't know. And that's what we're trying to find out today. So, let's get started. Alright, so here's the final build of the Zoom65. I'm going to start here because the version I have is the Dark Olivia version, and I want to start by commenting on its looks. It's very pretty. Yes, the caps are cloned, but Meletrix actually paid for the royalties to use the colorway, so it's not stolen. The case comes in a speckled metallic finish, so it brings a bit of flair and shine to otherwise a very common black colorway. And best of all, this was initially dropped at $179 for the full kit. Yes, a full kit. This includes the keyboard, the set of JWICK switches, as well as the Olivia Dark keycaps. You can also get the Essentials kit for $159 with no keycaps or switches as well in the near future. So at this point, from a deal perspective, the Zoom65 Olivia edition actually beats out the QK65. Even with the QK65 at $159, adding in switches and keycaps will definitely drive it above the $179 marker. But the question is, besides the total value proposition, can the Zoom65 outlook, outtype, and outsound the QK65? Well, we shall see. The Zoom65 comes in this unassuming black box with the Meletrix logo on top. They have a nice little elephant actually as their mascot. Like the QK65, the Zoom65 also comes in this nice carrying case. I feel like this is pretty much a given these days. Outside of the carrying case, you get some additional items in this secondary box. So things like the set of Dark Olivia keycaps, plus the endless foam package can be found in this box. As you go deeper into the carrying case, you are presented with the common parts that make up a keyboard. So, like a PCB. The PCB is another thin type PCB with hot swap function built in. There's no visible per key RGB or any other type of RGB really on this board, and that was the same case with the QK65 as well. Like the QK65, the Zoom65 also features many flex cuts at each row to ensure a nice and comfortable typing experience. Finally, as expected, the hot swap is handled by the standard KO hot swap sockets that most boards use these days. One thing that is different versus the QK65 is that the Zoom65 actually has a rotary encoder to accommodate a little knob. Like the QK65, the Zoom65 also offers some flexibility in terms of layouts by offering both north and south facing sockets for certain keys. Actually, the Zoom65 takes it one step further by even allowing for split spacebars, ISO support, and so on. But that also does make things a little odd, which I will show you later. And as expected, the Zoom65 is fully programmable with QMK or VIA. Moving on, my Zoom65 sample came with the PC plate. Also like the QK65, the plate has many flex cuts to allow for a very soft typing experience as well. I hope it's not too much though. As mentioned before, the Olivia Dark Edition that I have comes with this nice and speckled black aluminum case that adds a bit of flair and style. If you look into it, you can also see that it's kind of a casted design versus milled, which also helps to reduce the overall production cost for some of the more premium offerings that actually machine their cases. What's fun is that my kit also came with the optional brass internal weight. This thing weighs about 400 grams and helps to add some heft to the case as well. So let's see if it does really anything to the sound also later. In addition to the major components, you also have things like the JWICK switches, a coiled USB cable, set of stabilizers, hardware, and of course the knob. Before we move on to the building process, let's take a look at the foam. Yes, like everything else these days, the Zoom65 also comes with foam. Lots and lots of it. You have the foam kit that goes into the lower case. Then you have the foam that fits in between the case and the PCB. Then you got the plate foam. Finally, you got the PCB foam. What is interesting about this PCB foam is that it's not the typical PE foam you find in many keyboards these days, including the QK65. Rather, this seems to be very much like a thin pour-on sheet to me. I mean, you can either choose to use this or not, but Meletrix actually recommends that you build with all the foam. I did learn from my previous Hope 75 build that sometimes when they tell you to do something, it's not always a bad thing to follow the directions. So I'll be building my Zoom65 with all the included foam this time. So now that we know what this kit comes with, time to build this thing. But before we do that, a quick word from our sponsor, CableMod. You build a gangster keyboard like the Zoom65 or the QK65 and you want to complete the look. There's nothing better than a nice matching coiled USB cable to go with this setup. So the guys at CableMod is here to help. In addition to their original custom cable making service, CableMod has recently launched pre-made coiled USB cables in various colors and multiple styles for immediate purchase on Amazon. Every CableMod cable is made with high quality inner ModFlex sleeving and strong yet flexible outer mod mesh layer for beautiful looks as well as longevity. Unlike the typical DIY custom USB cables that use a heat shrink tube, CableMod uses metal USB connector housings for reliable operation, so you don't have to end up ripping the connectors off your cable. You can opt for the Pro coiled version with the crowd favorite Aviator quick disconnect. It's also powder coated, or you can also go with the classic with just a nice coil and the USB connection at the ends. Regardless of the build, CableMod offers 14 different colors to complete your look, and the classic cable goes for $29.90, while the Pro with the Aviator connection goes for $39.90. And now, even straight ones just for $29.90 as well, on Amazon, with Prime shipping, so check it out in the description below. So, since the Zoom65 is a gasket mounted keyboard, we start by applying the many gaskets onto the lower and the upper case. There's a total of 30 gaskets you need to apply. Yes, 30 gaskets, 15 on each half. Then we start by placing some foam into the lower case. It's actually mostly foam towards the backside of the case. You also have a secondary layer of foam to place on top of the foam, but if you are building this thing with an optional brass weight, you would actually be placing the brass weight here instead. The whole thing then will get screwed down together into the lower case. Then you place the under PCB foam into the case like this as well. For the plate and PCB assembly, the Zoom65 comes with little standoffs that fit onto the PCB on the outer edges like this. However, how this all comes together is a bit different in that the standoffs actually screw into the plate first, then you screw down the rest onto the PCB. As mentioned before, the Zoom65 comes with PCB foam, however this doesn't feel like the typical PE foam, rather it actually feels like a soft pour-on sheet. We'll see how this actually changes the sound. For stabilizers, I used the provided Wuque stabs that were made for thinner PCBs like this one. What's nice about this stab set is that it also comes with these Teflon strips that you can do a holy mod with. It's actually much easier than band-aids. Since the kit did come with JWICks, I did lube these and put them in. They come with a nicely weighted 63.5 gram spring, so they felt perfect for me. These are a little bit different from the all black JWICks you could buy, from that it's actually PC on the top instead of the nylon, but overall these still sound pretty good. Remember what I said about accommodating multiple layouts? Well, by doing so, you do have some hot swap sockets going east and west like this as well. It does look a little strange. In addition to that, it does butt up against the stab, so you can't really take them out the normal way. You have to actually grab them by the sides like this to pull it out, so just keep it in mind. Now put everything back together and place the provided Olivia dart caps onto the keyboard like this. And here's the final product. Looks wise, this thing is a banger. I mean, I don't think you can get any keyboard with Olivia dart sets to look ugly really, but with the glittery black case, the whole combination just looks very chic. Looks great, but what about the sound? So let's check it out. I did build this both with and without the brass weight, so here we go. So overall, the Zoom65, even without the brass weight, is a great sounding board. I did notice that the modifiers did sound a bit weak, especially the backspace and the left shift sounded pretty weak. So for the brass build, I did update the modifier switches to a long pole caret to increase the bottom out sound. So let's take it for a spin. In my opinion, the brass doesn't really add or take away much to the overall sound signature. I think they sound pretty similar and they both sound pretty good with or without. So in the end, what you gain by adding the brass is actually more heft. Some may associate this with more premium, so if it's worth it to you. However, if you're looking to maximize the value, this is probably something you can skip. With the long pole switches and the modifiers, they did improve in sound, but it's not as full as the QK's more resonant sound signature. So here's a quick comparison between the Zoom65 and the QK65 so you have it side by side. So given all this, what is my thought? Can the Zoom65 beat the QK65 as the new crowning entry champion? Well, long story short, no. The Zoom65 is a great keyboard, no doubt about that. If the QK65 wasn't around, I would actually say that this is the best entry 65% around. From a deal perspective, if you do go for the Olivia editions, it's a better value versus the QK65 for sure. Looks are subjective, but between the two, I actually prefer the look of the Zoom. The angular shape of the board with that rake in the back, it looks really pleasing to my eye. Sound is subjective, but both the Zoom65 and the QK65 sound great, much nicer than what an entry board should actually sound like. Finally, if a softer keyboard is what you're looking for, the Zoom65 does have a bouncier feel due to the thinner and softer PCB. Where it falls behind for me are in these areas. The refinement level of the Zoom65 does fall behind the QK65. Not that the Zoom65 is bad in any standout way, but if you do compare it to the QK65, the gaps are slightly wider. The seams are slightly bigger. I know it's minor and might sound nitpicky, but I did notice these things. As I mentioned before many times, I feel like the QK65 is in fact a premium keyboard disguised in a lower price point to be entry. Everything about the QK65 just felt very polished in terms of design execution, assembly, and the final results. It's almost like if you put LeBron James in a high school basketball game. Wait, I think that actually happened. I did run into some small QC issues with my sample here with the Zoom65. My knob is crooked. It still works, but it's kind of slanted to one side and it is noticeable. Haha, I can see you guys literally snickering away, so stop it. I would probably desolder this and straighten it out and resolder it sometime. Finally, although the sound is subjective, the QK65 does have a more expansive sound. Overall, it just sounds like a larger keyboard with a wider soundstage. You might not like that, but for me, I do like a big sounding board, so personal preference here, I guess. Other than the crooked knob. Come on, stop it. The Zoom65 is a great 65% entry gasket board that once again punches above its weight. It would easily have been the top board in its class, but you just can't ignore the elephant in the room. The QK65 is just too OP. At the end of the day, it's your preference. If you gravitate towards one over the other due to its design or sound profile, hey, you can't go wrong with either. The Zoom65 is a great entry board that is slightly rough around the edges with potential to be great with some refinement. The QK65 probably belongs in a different price group and eventually will stop harassing true entry-level boards. Who knows? I hope the comparison will help you determine what you really prefer. And as always, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe and I will have more content for you in the future. Thank you always for your support.